Good evening. Welcome to this week's edition of Dispatch, a show designed to keep you on track as you build and operate your layout. I'm Roy Smith, your dispatcher. Thank you for joining me tonight. Coming up on the show, your comments, your photos, a shout out, the question of the week, and announcements. We have a lot to cover, so let's get started. First, your comments. There seems to be an echo in here. You may recall that I published a video called Removing Fascia and Mountaintops this past Saturday. This video was the second in a continuing series about the big track plan changes that I am making on my layout. I will put a link to this video down below in case you haven't seen it yet. Later that same day, I posted this screenshot from the video on Facebook. The caption that I gave to the screenshot was, "It's time to play the model railroaders version of Whack-A-Mole." I received a ton of comments after uploading this video, and I'd like to share a few of them with you. In the comments, the Paul V12 wrote, "Yes, Roy, I'm getting impatient waiting for next week's video now. I don't know how you managed to catch me as an increasingly regular viewer, but you have. I suppose I had better subscribe." Thanks, my friend. I'm really glad you decided to become a subscriber. We're going to have tons of fun as we continue to share this amazing hobby. Jack Olliman wrote, "Roy, it's always hard to take those first few steps, but it's always good in the end. Thanks for sharing." You're right, Jack. It is hard to take those first few steps when making changes on our layouts. It can be scary because we can't be totally sure of the outcome of those changes in advance. John E. wrote, "Roy, you need a mini chainsaw." Just kidding. Debris and cleaning are just part of the progress. I like your vision for changes. Longer runs seem to be more elegant. Thanks, John. Maybe a little dynamite would have worked too. Beads of white styrofoam were flying everywhere as I cut off the top of White Mountain. It looked like a snowstorm in my train room. Thank goodness for shop vacs. Ian Higgins wrote, "Hi Roy, another great video. I was really impressed with the Superman impersonation by holding a whole mountain above your head." Well, Ian, not only did I hold a whole mountain on top of my head, just like Superman himself would do, but I am also more powerful than a locomotive. Ha!
Faster than a speeding bullet. More powerful than a locomotive.
I remember that hit show from the 1950s when I was a kid. It seems like only yesterday. Finally, Trainman Bob wrote, "Ah, Roy, the man who can move mountains." Well, at least you have taken the plunge, Roy. The first part is always the worst, but it will soon get loads better. Cheers, Bob. Aha, the man who can move mountains. I love it, Bob. I must remember that one. There were so many wonderful comments in response to that video, and I'd like to share all of them with you. But if I did, we would be here all night. So instead, why don't you just mosey on over to the video where you can read the rest of the comments. By the way, do you know what mosey on over means? The term mosey probably comes from the Old English term mose, which means to wander about in a leisurely way. Or perhaps it comes from the Spanish term vamos, which I hear all the time down here in Panama. Vamos means let's go. Well, I'll put a link to the video down below. Just go on over any way you can and take a look at it. Now, before moving on, a number of you have asked about the characteristics of the Eastern Helix, so let me just briefly respond to those questions. The Helix is a kit that I bought online from Ashland Designs back in 2014. Sadly, it seems that Ashland Designs has gone out of business. The grade of the Helix is 2%, and the radius of the inner track on the Helix is 15 inches and the outer track 16 3/8 inches. I used Kato Super Elevated Double Track on the Helix. Next up, your layout photos. A bunch of you posted photos of your layouts in the Facebook group associated with this channel. That, of course, is the N-Scale Union Pacific Evanston Subdivision Group. I would like to share all of those photos with you here on Dispatch, but again, we'd be here all night and maybe part of tomorrow looking at those photos. So I've selected a few of them to share with you tonight, and here they are. I encourage you to go on over to the Facebook group after this edition of Dispatch ends to see the rest of the layout photos that were posted there. I hope you will join the group, and I'd love to see you post your layout photos there, because if there's anything we model railroaders enjoy, it's looking at layouts. Your photo doesn't have to be a work of art. It doesn't have to depict a finished layout. Just go ahead and post it, because we want to see what you're doing on your layout. Speaking of seeing what people are doing on their layouts, it's time for this week's shout out. This week's shout out goes to James Young and his wonderful N-Scale layout. Jim is a model railroad friend who lives up there in central Pennsylvania. He has been sharing his layout on YouTube. Here's a clip from one of his recent videos.
This here calling system, I'm going to start up and let it run. This is for Roy Smith, my UP man in Panama City, Panama. There you go, Roy. Big blow and a DD40X just for you, buddy. And we'll sign off with that. Thank you all for watching. You all have a good day, a wonderful night.
Now, I have met Jim in person, but I haven't had a chance to visit his layout yet. Maybe I will have a chance to do that next time I go to Pennsylvania. Thanks for sharing your layout with the rest of us, Jim. I will post a link to Jim's channel down below. Go on over and check out his channel. And while you're over there, be sure to subscribe. Tell him Roy Smith sent you. Next up, question of the week. Last week's question was, what kind of track do you use on your layout and why? There were tons of responses to this question, and as you might imagine, there was a wide range of answers because we have a wide range of track to choose from, and each of us has personal preferences. Atlas Flex Track was a standout winner in the responses, both in HO and N-Scale. Atlas Code 55 Flex Track seems to be especially popular. Why Atlas Flex Track? Well, you have told me that it's less expensive and more readily available than other brands of track. To be sure, some of you are very fond of Micro Engineering and Pico track. One notable issue is the stiffness of the Micro Engineering track. This stiffness can make it difficult for newcomers to bend Micro Engineering track into graceful curves. I remember using Flex Track along with Pico turnouts when I built my previous N-Scale layout back in the 1980s. I remember that I was quite happy with it at the time. Another standout winner, in N-Scale at least, is Kato Unitrack. Many of you say you like it because of its convenience and reliability. Cato Unitrack is easy to reconfigure when changing your track plan. Bachmann EasyTrack was also mentioned because it often comes in starter train sets. As most of you probably know, I use Cato Unitrack on my layout for the same reasons that many of you mentioned, namely its convenience and reliability. But there's one other reason why I use it, and that is I'm getting too old to be doing all of that bending, cutting, and soldering that FlexTrack requires. And now, this coming week's question of the week. Here it is. Is your layout based on a prototype or is it freelanced? In case you're new to the hobby and asking, what's the difference between prototype and freelance model railroading? Let me try to explain it briefly. In prototype model railroading, you pick a real railroad running through a real location during a particular era and you base your layout on that. In freelance model railroading, you model whatever you want. The location can be entirely fictitious, and the railroad running through that location can be completely made up. You're limited only by your imagination when freelancing. And then, of course, you may choose to model something in between. This is often called proto-lancing. For example, you may choose to model a real railroad that you run through a fictitious location. None of these choices is the best. Each has advantages and disadvantages. It's your railroad, whether you choose between prototype, freelance, or proto-lance is entirely up to you. I look forward to knowing what you do. Is your layout based on a real prototype, or is it a fictional freelanced layout? Let me know in the comments down below. I will share your comments in next week's edition of Dispatch. Last up, announcements. Thanks to Sparky 107 something marvelous has been added to the list of activities for the Steamtown Weekend Get-Together during May 18th and 19th. And that is, we are going to have dinner in a fully restored Erie and Lackawanna dining car. How great is that? What could be better than having dinner with a bunch of your model railroad friends? But you do need to reserve a seat for yourself and anyone coming to Steamtown with you. Seating is limited to 48 people, so you should hurry on over to Sparky's dining car sign-up video and make your reservations. I'll put a link to Sparky's sign-up video down below. In his video, Sparky tells you all about the dining car experience and how you can pay for it in advance. My wife Leonore and I will be there, and I'd sure love to have dinner with you that day. So now we have 4 activities during the Steamtown Get-Together. They are Steamtown National Historic Site in downtown Scranton, Pennsylvania on Saturday, May 18th. The dining car experience at 4 p.m. that same day. A visit to the Hudson Model Railroad Club following dinner, probably around 6:30 p.m. And Horseshoe Curve National Historic Landmark near Altoona, Pennsylvania the next day, Sunday, May 19th. I'll put the link to my Steamtown playlist down below. There you will find a bunch of videos describing the Steamtown Get-Together in detail. Now, next announcement. Be sure to come back here on Saturday to see the next thrilling episode in my Big Track Plan Changes series. I try to upload new episodes at 9 a.m. Eastern Time every Saturday morning. In fact, if you're new here, why don't you just go ahead and subscribe to this channel and hit that little bell icon so that you don't miss any of the upcoming episodes. Well, that completes the announcements that I have, but be sure to let me know if you have any upcoming events that you would like me to announce here on Dispatch. That also completes this edition of Dispatch. Thanks for joining me tonight. Remember, the best thing about model railroading is sharing the hobby with others. So I hope to see you right here for next week's edition of the show. And remember, Saturday's regular update to my Big Track Plan Changes. Until then, happy railroading. I'm Roy Smith, and I will see you again very soon.